queen, and I am the rook. You are the fire, and I burn like a book. Don't know how this one ends till I die. And the honest part of reliable is the lie. The greater the power, the more the abuse. You are the hand, I worship the bruise. If romance is dead, I guess I'm a necrophiliac. But every god needs a sacrifice. I am the cross and you are the Christ. So I drink.
Beepity beep. Welcome to the ever classy and ever highly professional Mothers Mayhem Extreme Horror Podcast.
We're extremely professional. Like, no.
Yeah.
No.
Christina looks really nice today.
I'm wearing a dress.
Christina looks really beautiful today, and she's very nice cleavage. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, what you need to understand is Christina's boobage looks fabulous today.
They look 32.
I, on the other hand, am a large pumpkin with a sinus infection.
You're also pregnant. So I'm doing this for the both of us, right? She's a trooper. She is not feeling well, and still, because I have been looking forward to this one for so long, she is taking one for the team. So,
we can't miss this. It's Ryan Harding of all people. I was like,
right?
Why does it have to be this weekend that I'm going to be ill? I'm just gonna so you know, you won't be burdened with the annoyance of my horrible laugh for a majority of this one, because I'm probably just gonna sit here like, yeah, you guys are so smart.
He writes books.
I have a headache.
Right?
You write really good books.
They're okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's not like people get them tattooed on them or anything.
Oh yeah, no, show the YouTube viewers
your
new accessory.
I did. I got one finally. Got one. And it's from Reincursion by Ryan Harding and Jason Tavner. So,
huzzah!
Yay! And I'm getting another one with Mike Ennenbach's words on me. So
he should also be joining us soon. Don't we get to talk to him in a few weeks? I think next weekend we get to talk to someone else that Mr. Ryan Harding has collaborated. I think next week is our Chris Triano weekend. I'm pretty sure we get to talk to Christopher Triano. We were able to schedule our Night Stalkers back to back.
Right.
Yep. Next Saturday we get to talk to
There
Christopher Triano. So this weekend we're bringing you Harding. Next week you get Triano.
There you go.
We are killing it.
We're on it. And we had Morrison and Keane. Like, come on.
Yeah, and
get on our level.
Oh
people.
gosh, I can't believe we're almost up to the end of the first half of season 1.
I know.
This is wild.
So, do you want to see what I've been doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I want to preface this episode with I am a fangirl. Okay. It's not that it doesn't take that much to figure that out. I'm a fangirl. I look at it like I'm the nerdy girl at school and he's like the quarterback. Like, our friendship doesn't make sense, but yet somehow it does. So
essentially you are Eddie Munson and Ryan Harding is Chrissy. You don't know what that means?
I don't know what that means.
Stranger Things. Oh my God.
I don't watch that.
All right.
I don't watch it.
If you're listening or watching this right now and you're just like, I am so done with Mother's Mayhem, I'm out, I totally validate you. I
watch
because everybody except Christina is gonna get that joke. Christina.
I'm sorry. So I don't watch a lot of television. Today is what, the 17th? I've watched one movie. And I watched it last night.
What movie?
I watched Whiplash with J.K. Simmons, aka Schillinger from Oz. Loved it. Super good. Super impressed. It was really stressful though.
I've never heard of it.
It's so good. Okay, so it's about this kid who wants to be a drummer in a at Carnegie Hall and Lincoln Center, and he gives up everything for it. He gives up his pride, his dignity, his girlfriend, everything. But he's always seeking approval. It's stressful.
I was gonna say, it kind of sounds sad.
It is. I got really kind of sad at
and
the
it doesn't
end,
sound like horror.
Oh,
sounds
absolutely
like
not.
Real life traumatic.
No. Yeah, no, it is absolutely not horror. Yeah. So are you ready for this?
Yeah.
They won't be able to see it if they're listening, but there are 458 tabs.
Okay, wait, hold that up again so I can do a little screenshot here. I'm going to screenshot this and I'm going to see if, Drew usually makes our thumbnails for YouTube.
The whole thing.
But so this might have to be the one this time.
Morrison came in at around 120, 130. And we're going to talk about Easter eggs because he has so many. Some of his lines, dialogue, is based off of music and out of movies and all of this. And I'm like, dude, I got enough.
I have to be honest with our listeners. Christina's read the entire Harding bibliography.
Everything
I have
that I can get my hands on.
Not had a chance to read probably more than just a few. And that does not reduce my appreciation of this man in any way, shape, or form. Because honestly, you don't have to read many of Ryan. All you need to do is pick up one Ryan Harding and you'll be like, well, here's one of our top players in the game. You can't really get by that. But
that's really,
I haven't had a chance to go through them all yet.
They're all good. But like I said, reincursion it's not heart murder, it's emotional damage, and I will never forgive him or Jason for what they did. So
do you know what my own personal hell is going to be, Christina?
Having a TBR that you've not finished and nobody will Ouija board you back. Because that's my personal hell.
Well, no, I will be Ouija boarded back, but I won't have the energy to actually touch the books. My ghost will want to go pick up the books that I never had a chance to read. My hands are gonna right through them, and I'm like,
"That's good."
This fucking crap! Fuck you, Satan!
Okay,
all the
really
books
good.
are right there, and I'm just scraping at them like a dog trying to.
And the audiobook, the only audiobook that you can listen to is anything narrated by Zach Baggins.
Shut up! You know
what? Do you think?
You know right? What? The devil was in hell just a minute ago taking a nap, and you said those words, and he immediately woke up and was like, "What was that?" That was genius.
Let me write that
I'm writing that one down.
Right? Every once in a while, I have a moment where I'm actually freaking genius.
That was awful. That was awful.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Oops, sorry about that. Since it's going to be a suck fest, and that's just the way it is. Do you want to talk about someone other than Harding for a few minutes? Because I have read some fucking bangers this week.
Please tell everyone all about what you've read, because this was not my week for reading. I'll just be honest. I was traveling so much for work, and then I got sick, and
she licked a doorknob. She licked a doorknob. So
yeah, well, we were talking about our tiny plague rats. It's you're not going to hear this till October, but it's currently September 17th. Yes. And if any of you are parents, you're probably also struggling with the back to school bugs that have been brought home by your own plague rats. So.
Unless you're homeschooling like me.
Yes, which I need an update on off the podcast, because I was going to ask you about that today, and then we totally got sidetracked. We got into it. Yeah.
So today I'm going to talk about 3 that I actually read in like the past couple days. I want to talk about Fuck You, Mary Sue. I
saw your review on that this morning, and I'm so interested. I don't know how to prioritize.
Okay, so this one reminds me of Heathers meets Mean Girls, but in a very different point of view.
Oh, I'm so interested.
Yeah.
On your Facebook review, I saw Dakota Daw, who's another book reviewer online who I respect immensely. If you guys aren't following Dakota Daw, he's fantastic. He's part of the Godless Hype crew. And as I said, him and Christina, I respect their opinions to the highest level. But he even said in his comment that he like immediately direct messaged Elton.
Yeah, I did too. I did too.
And when I see that from people like you guys, who I'm like, I know you guys vibe the same way I vibe. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get this book.
And it's really fast. It's about 32 pages.
Oh
it's
damn!
It's 50 cents on Godless because it's an Emerge series. It is. Because I'm doing obviously like a top 10 books of the year, but I'm actually also having to do top 10 short stories of the year. And he is a number 3 for me. That's how good this is.
Okay.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, it's so good. So good.
Keep talking to the people because I'm purchasing it right now.
Oh, even better. Yay.
Yeah.
So the second one that I want to talk about is, so everyone pretty much knows I have a boner for poetry first, but plays are second to poetry.
Somebody
I have a huge
play
collection.
Plays. Who just sent me his book
Ben
of plays?
Azza.
Yes, Ben just sent me his plays. Yes.
Okay. When I tell you, there's one called American Demon. It's 8 pages, and I was sobbing because it was so beautiful. I think I actually have the quote here, and you're going to be like, what the fuck? Hold on.
Oh, God, Christina, I've been so hormonal this weekend. I don't know
if I can
handle this.
Get ready. I do have it. Naturally, when you think you're going to die, you're going to pray to God to live. However, there's a threshold of pain where you stop caring and beg to die.
That's so true.
And I'm like, holy shit. And what's so great about Ben is he does surrealism and absurdism so well. And yet he has An American Demon is number 2, even though technically it's not a short story. I don't care. It's number 2 on my short story list for the year because it's about an American Marine who goes and is disfigured because of Iraq. And he comes back and it talks about his marriage and how it falls apart. It talks about how he, I'm not ruining anything, but he talks about how he has to fuck his wife from behind because she can't even look at him.
Stop! No!
Right? Girl. So, Sobfest 2022, thank you, Ben Arzate, for the arc and the tears. And I mean, there's
so Ben, I'm gonna have to tell you right now. I know you just sent me this arc, but I'm probably gonna have to wait until my daughter is like a year out, or else my current pregnancy plus postpartum mental health will probably you'll put me in the hospital.
Right.
Sorry.
And then there's like, I mean,
you said that quote about death, and I thought about when my husband was really, really sick.
Right.
It's not even like about yourself. You get to the point where you watch somebody else suffer in that way. And I remember those days where I would like be like praying to God and just saying like, if you're gonna take him, just take him.
Help me.
This is ludicrously cruel. Why are you doing this to this person? If it's gonna end, just do it now.
Right.
Why would you torture him this way? Why would you torture us this way? Like,
and
then my husband will tell you the same thing. There were days where he was like, God Almighty, like, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
Like, if I'm gonna die, just let me die. Like,
and Ben really
I can't handle that.
He really speaks to the psyche of that, and it is absolutely stunning. It is worth every goddamn penny, plus more. I already was like, I need a signed copy, like a fucking sap when you get it. But now I'm gonna switch gears. We were sad, but now we get to talk about a talking cock arm.
Okay, wait. Is this a penis with an arm?
No, it's like an arm that's a cock.
That is a penis.
Yeah.
So they have an arm, but that arm is a dick.
Yes. And we can thank Mr. Mike Lombardo and his short story collection. Please don't tap on the glass.
Oh, I have this in my TBR and I want it so bad.
It's amazing.
You guys have been talking about it, and I love the whole the cover, and
the cover is amazing.
So excited. And it's like at the top of my list, and I just gotta make a way.
Yeah, it was funny because I was supposed to be reading it with buddy reading it with Ryan, and I can't be trusted with short stories. I'm sorry, I just can't, because I was like, hey, I'm on the last story, and he's like, what the fuck? I'm on the first one. He was like, great buddy read. I'm like, I can't be trusted. If it's short stories, I can't be trusted, because like we go from like one called Dead Format that's like a mystery VHS, and it's there's a lot of unshaved vaginas and gore, and then we go to one of the most depressing and unsettling short stories I've ever read in my life, and I'm 40 years old. It is depressing and heavy, but it's so good. So, and then tentacles and oral sex. I mean, he's very.
Then we go into that whole La Blue Girl world,
and he even has a story featuring Brian Keene.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god!
My notes are Brian Keene likes guns and booze, but not reporters and trespassers.
All of that's true. All of that is true and accurate of Brian Keene.
Right? And it's really he does kind of what Harding does and tells like the story behind the story after every one of them.
You know what? Keene does that too in his short story collections. That's so funny.
I still haven't read anything by Keene.
So I actually just recommended this to Paula Ash last week, but I gotta recommend to you then, if you haven't read anything, if you're only gonna read one thing that Brian Keene has ever written, let it be Blood on the Page. That's his complete short fiction. And
that is actually on sale now for 99 cents.
Look, Christina, I am not, this
did
ain't
you
me,
tab?
girl. This ain't
did
me.
You tab?
Not only did I tab, I took notes. There's a story in here called I Sing a New Psalm, and when you read it, it's only like 4 or 5 pages, but when you read it, your mind's just gonna be like, and
all right.
I didn't realize how much like theology he uses in his horror, which to me is real.
You love that.
Oh, yeah, you know I love it. But yeah, if you're going to read anything and then walk away, just let it be this one because it's way worth it.
And while we're probably a month out from airing this one, it is on sale right now for 99 cents. And so I'm going to pick it up. Because I have The Rising, which is credited with bringing back the zombie craze. And I think I have one other one. Maybe.
Oh, look.
Hey, everyone.
Hi. Hello, Ryan Harding.
Hello.
It's nice to meet you.
Oh, you too, finally.
Yes. I went to send you the link and I was like, I think we're friends, but I've never had the chance to actually talk to him.
Oh, you've been fortunate for a while.
No, I'm pretty sure that's the other way around. Well, welcome to Mothers of Mayhem, Ryan Harding. We're so happy to have you. Thank you for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well,
I maybe a little bit. This.
Christina's only mildly excited.
Just a little. It's already been prefaced, like at the beginning. Like they know how this is gonna go.
I don't think she told you about it at all either. So
he has no idea who I even am. So
just so you're aware, Christina's an insane person.
I think he got that about minute 3 in.
And you're the main focus of that right now. So
hyperfixation.
Congratulations.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that an award winner right there?
Yeah.
I think that Christina already warned you. I unfortunately am really not feeling very well this weekend. So I am here and I will be asking you some questions, but that fine lady is probably going to take the reins on that one. And hopefully we'll get you back at another time when I'm feeling a little bit sparklier, because I'm sad that I'm not my usual self for this one, because we've been so excited to have you. We've been waiting weeks and weeks for this one. So yay! In case you haven't listened to our show in the past, which is all right, I guess.
I've seen it a few times.
Oh, bless your heart. We appreciate that too. We're gonna ask you a bunch of questions that Christina has put a lot of time and effort into creating for you. So these are actually smart questions for the most part. And then after our little godless break, we're going to ask you some really dumb questions.
That's all Marian.
Which is all neat. So I'm going to let Miss Christina kick it off. You got this nice chill vibe and I don't know how to handle it.
Like, all right. So we'll start with Easter eggs. I naively thought that Morrison had cornered the market for me with Easter eggs, and sadly, I was mistaken. Ryan single-handedly made me replenish my tab stash, and everybody's already seen all the tabs, so we don't have to redo that. Much like music and movie references, this seems to be something that you have fun doing. So this is a three-parter. It's 3. Just so you know. First off, what is your it's already off the rails. What is your favorite reoccurring Easter egg? Which one do you wish more people would pick up on? And do you write the story first and then add them, or do you add them as you go?
Well.
Oh wait, I have a fourth question. Do the Easter eggs even really exist, or is Christina just making this all up and now you have to feed into her delusion?
Yeah.
It's that one. I think it's that one.
Yeah, there's all kinds of them. Yeah,
Oh,
it's all connected.
Tell us more.
Yeah, going back, I guess one of the longest running ones would have been from Genital Grinder, the first collection, and it involves a newscaster, interviewer named Geisha Hammond. That's one of the longest running, and when I started doing that in that book, that one became one of the go-to things in it, and that one's been a lot of fun, I think, because each reference to her is mostly about how each of the male characters feels about her sexually and her lips, and how their estimates for how quickly she can pleasure them get shorter and shorter as the book goes along. So, and I brought that back in the new one, Transcendental Mutilation, one time just because I knew it annoyed at least one person on the first collection. So
you were that's you one know what? F you, here she comes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can, like Captain America said, I can do this all day. But that's one of them. There's one in the newer book, the new book, Transcendental Mutilation. There's something that's set up in the first story that the joke doesn't pay off until much later in the book, and that's one I like, because I like to be a little bit more ambitious with the connections in the stories this time and have like a greater payoff to them. And I think that's one where that one went further than I was able to do in Genital Grinder with it. So I like that one, and I hope people will pick up on that one. And then gosh, like there's a character referenced in Reincarnage and Reincursion named Silly Jackson, and this is just like an in joke between me and the other writer, Jason Taverner, because it was a lie that he told to somebody when he was a kid. He was convinced this other kid was lying about stuff all the time, so he tried to one up him at his game and invented this stunt clown named Silly Jackson. And he would talk about all the things that were on the show, and the friend would be like, yeah, that was great, and just agree to the whole thing, but it was all just a lie. So I threw this into the book because I thought it was so hilarious. So we have this stunt clown in the book that we've talked about it very briefly in both installments, and I'm sure we'll probably find a way to work him into the next one too. I guess a more serious one is the killer in a story called Temple of Amdusias. He's mentioned in my novella, The Profile, which was written in the Godless series, Call Me Who.
Yes.
Yeah, the fucking scumbags burn in hell series. So his exploits are what are being investigated in The Profile, but why he's doing all of this isn't revealed until Temple of Amdusias, and it's not a very real world thing. It goes a lot more supernatural than I do in a lot of my stories. So those are some of the Easter eggs that come to mind. I like those a lot.
Just so you know, my children haven't read your books.
They probably shouldn't
yet, but
right?
As a family, my Clark has been doing some secret reading recently. I've discovered. But as a family, we have decided that the next cat we adopt will be named Silly Jackson.
I hope he lives up to the billing then.
Because it's too good. It's way too good. So with those Easter eggs that you created and that move even through your collaborations, like Christina mentioned, there's a lot of them actually that are music and movie based too. So they play a really heavy hand in the art that you create. You've referenced bands like Entombed, Morbid Angel, Cannibal Corpse, Carcass, Napalm Death. We've got movies like Genital Grinder. But then we have like Carrie, the classic Demons. Silence of the Lambs, which is a book that a book and movie that actually have a very special place in my heart for personal reasons. Night Stalkers that you wrote with Chris Triana, who we actually get to talk with next weekend. that's basically a huge homage to death metal, black metal. So knowing that not Night Stalkers is definitely like obviously rooted in those inspirations. Can you tell us more about how you integrate your love of horror pop culture into the work that you write?
Well, there was a show on HBO many years ago called Dream On, and the character in it, he was like a book editor, and he'd watched too much TV as a kid. And so as he goes through the show, there's all these little flashback clips to these old black and white movies and shows that are like an ironic contrast to what's going on in the show. And I think I just kind of inherited that sort of thing, but with horror and metal and that kind of stuff. It's just constantly going through my mind in my life. And with Night Stalkers in particular, it was set in 1992, which was kind of around the time that I started being really fixated in extreme metal, and I started getting into Euro horror back then. And those became such dominant obsessions in my life that really started being forged with my work. And I would start to allude to those kinds of things more and more just because I liked it so much. And I'd sometimes see other stories that would have some kind of allusion to something like that. And it was just something that I started to go for more and more. But I guess Pandemonium especially is a big Euro horror homage. There's so many things in it, like every other page, there's some kind of reference to some Italian or Spanish or something horror movie. Like even the cover, we had the artist Daniela Batsheva purposely designing characters to look like things that we based them on in the movies, like the Crimson Executioner, that was taken from Bloody Pit of Horror.
Yes.
We had Ilsa from the She-Wolf of the SS. She's on the back cover. The Pimp from Demons is in the ring. He's the announcer was based on him in Pandemonium, and there's a lot of things like that in the book. Just Lucas is into that stuff too, so we were just trading those out left and right, and every time we passed it back and forth, there'd be more and more and more added to it. So if Christine had known about like everything like that, she would have gone through probably another book of tabs.
I know. There's, like I told him, there's 458. That's the best I can do.
Well, that angle really piques my interest because before I had too many kids, I had more disposable income, and I was a huge collector of horror film, particularly cult band. I have Ilsa. I have Anthropophagus.
Good.
I have Necromantic. I have Shram. I have like what? So I want to know, and this is going to be a really hard question because I know I wouldn't be able to answer it. What's one of your favorite Euro horror films? Are you like, you really like the Giallo or?
Yeah, I really love those Giallo movies. Jason Taverner, I even wrote a Giallo one time. We had to abandon it just because it kind of came off the rails, but we got like 80,000 words into that book and had to pull the plug on it because it just wasn't working anymore. But yeah, I love stuff like Torso and Don't Torture a Duckling and Deep Red and Tenebrae.
Argento or Fulci?
I lean more toward Argento myself because that was my introduction to Euro horror, especially. It was an article by Maitland McDonough that I read in a magazine called Horror Fan. And I didn't really know stuff like that existed at the time. I kind of felt like I'd seen most of the important stuff, naive high schooler. But once I read that article, I realized there was just this whole other world of stuff that was out there that when it came over here was usually censored. So it became like a big obsession with me to track down these bootleg copies of uncut prints of them. And so that was where I started with Argento. And then another friend was into the same stuff too. So we were trying to track down more and more of this stuff. And there was a lot of Argento and Fulci. I mean, I love both of them. Big fan of both of them. They're both alluded to frequently in my stuff. But yeah, Euro horror in general, I love. Suspiria was really a life-altering thing when I saw that for the first time because I'd never seen anything like it. There's really not any movies like that one, but that just had such an artistic style to how it was filmed and had the Goblin soundtrack. And
yes. Oh, it's all about those visuals. Oh my God.
And like the opening double murder, it's it's beautiful, but it's also really gory, and I like that kind of contrast. And that's something also that like harkens back to the lyrics of Carcass. I mean, my book is called Genital Grinder. That's a Carcass song, but really Jeff Walker's lyrics were a big influence, I think, on how I approach things, because his lyrics for Necroticism, the Necroticism album in particular, just kind of blew my mind at the time, because there's all these polysyllabic, huge words, you know, that I didn't even know, and they're all being used to convey these really macabre and morbid, grotesque subjects. And I think that's something that resonated with me a lot, to where that was something I tried to employ too.
Oh, that's awesome. I all of the film stuff really gets me because it's such a big part of what I love. So when that starts getting incorporated, I'm just like, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's something that, yeah, it's a thread that goes through my stuff pretty much all the time.
And for anyone who's not watching, I don't know any of these movies. I've never seen a single solitary one.
What was?
I know they're in the house, but I have not watched like every single one that's been named. I'm just like, nope.
What was part B of the first question?
Oh yeah, that's right. For the Easter eggs.
Yeah. Which do you wish more people would pick up on?
This isn't like the reader's fault this time. This is our fault. But we had set up a part in Reincursion for one of the Prowlers. He had an email address, and we wanted it for where the readers might think, well, why does this hyperlink actually work in this book? And thought somebody might actually try to do it and contact him. And if they did, we had a secret bonus chapter that we would send to anybody who did that. And as it turned out, Jason got the address wrong in the book.
No!
He added it should just be yahoo.com, but he put yahoomail.com. And if you take mail out, it works, but unfortunately that's not something we caught. After you proofread a book about 6 times, there's a lot of things you stop seeing at a certain point. So that's something that kind of got lost. And also in the same book, in Reincursion, there's a character named Erica, and there's a secret storyline going on with her that we cannot come right out and say, and can all just be hinted at because she doesn't know it herself. So that's something, you know, I hope people will kind of pick up on. I haven't heard anybody talk about it. Like one of the beta readers we sent it to noticed a lot of it. So I thought, oh, people are really going to get this. And I don't know if they actually did. It might have been an anomaly, which unfortunately came right off the top, where we thought, oh, we must have done our jobs well. But that may not actually be true. So that's a couple of things that, yeah, it would be nice if more people might pick up on. I can't say for sure about Transcendental Mutilation, which hasn't come out yet, but I think the stuff in there, I think people are going to notice. Hopefully.
Do you think up the Easter eggs first before the book starts to come together? Or do the Easter eggs present themselves as opportunities once the book's in progress?
It's only when I'm actually collecting them that I start thinking that way, because these projects are meant for like certain anthologies that have their own thematic conceits that I'm trying to adhere to. So I'm focused on that first and foremost, and a lot of times there's going to be a word limit. So a lot of times I shoot past a word limit and I have to cut things out as it is. So I don't put a lot of thought into Easter egg material at that time. It's only when I'm starting to collect them and I'm starting to see which themes connect that I'm not aware of as I'm writing the stuff necessarily. So when I can start to see the big picture of them, and I can start and see like the ages of the characters. 3 of the stories in Transcendental Mutilation have college characters intersecting in them, so it's easy to like connect those, put things in there that connect those stories and make it obvious that, oh, well, they all go to the same university and a lot of them are in the same dorm, even though their adventures / misadventures don't have anything to do with each other. They're all still connected in that way. And I think that sort of thing makes a collection more interesting to read. It's just something I kind of picked up on from Bret Easton Ellis's The Informers, I think, was one of the first times that I paid attention to that sort of thing. And just in his books in general, there will be characters who show up that you know from another book, and it's interesting to see what they're like in another book where they take center stage, such as American Psycho. You read The Rules of Attraction, and that's about his brother, but he shows up in The Rules of Attraction, and it's fun to read a chapter from him. It's like, yeah, this guy's crazy, but you don't realize that reading The Rules of Attraction. It's not until later. So.
Right. I can't imagine trying to cut things out simply because of a word limit. I don't know if my brain could handle that. How do you handle that? How do you do that? And do you take stuff that you have to cut and set it aside kind of as like foundation pieces or things to use in other stories later?
No, I know probably I'll do a collection later and I can just restore it, which is what all the stories that are in Transcendental Mutilation, all of them, the Temple of Amdusias, were published in another anthology or magazine or something. So none of them are the same as their original publications. I've added stuff to all of them, edited them, taken some things out. I put things back into it that I had to cut out before. So it is difficult to cut. I think Divine Red, I had to cut. That was for Into Pain Free, from edited by Gerard Warner, and 5,000 words I think was the absolute limit. And I shot way past it. And,
that's not a lot.
Yeah, I had to go. I think I had to cut, like, I don't remember how much it was exactly, but over 1,000 words out of that story. Yeah, a lot of it had to be taken out, and that was an all day because I was already up on the deadline. I had to spend like a Sunday just going through that story and taking out every single word that I could that I thought it could lose. And sometimes it's pretty easy to just take a word out of a sentence that doesn't change its meaning, but other times you have to cut a little deeper than that.
Oh, now see, that's an interesting concept to me. So it's not just about like taking core pieces of concept out. Sometimes it's just about going in and taking out superfluous verbiage.
Yeah. There
For
are
the
things like
sake
that.
of the sanctity of the story.
Yeah, it's like a word like that can be taken out a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I think doing that kind of led me to be just more economical about how I write anyway. And I think it had an influence on how I write, to the point that I changed my style quite a bit since when I started being in more and more anthologies like that. So my style adapted a little bit. I think it's better now and more firm in how I do words compared to like Genital Grinder, which was a little freer, rawer.
Christina.
Oh, I thought it was your turn. That's why I'm like,
oh, no.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right, so let's talk about common themes. My absolute favorite is to hunt for instances of documentation, like in development, and one of them in Transcendental Mutilation, or video. It even appears in Reincarnage and Reincursion that you co-authored with Jason Tavner. The only one that isn't predominant is Pandemonium. And I could even make the case that the live streaming podcasters could technically be a form of documentation. This is just a super long-winded way of asking if this was intentional.
I think also in Pandemonium, you have people doing the live, like going FaceTime live too in a couple of scenes. So yeah, I think there is the documentation like that. It's not really something I think about doing. It's more of just a subconscious impulse, and I think a lot of that is because of my the Great and Secret Show, I guess, by Clive Barker.
Oh God, yes.
Resonated a lot with me when I read that when I was in, I think, middle school.
Oh, me
probably,
too.
Probably 6th or 7th grade. And in like the beginning of the story, you have Randolph. He works in the dead letter office, the post office. They have him going through there to look for money or porno pictures or or whatever in the dead letter section, and he's supposed to share it with everybody. And he's kind of bitter, thinks he should be bigger in the world. He wants to be king of the world, essentially. And as he goes through all these letters, he finds out there's like this thing called the Art. There's this place called Quiddity. All this stuff that he's never heard about before, but that a lot of people talk about, they write about. It's the secret world that changes his whole destiny, essentially. And I just always loved that beginning so much. And that's something I think that it kind of ties into with what you're talking about. Because I consider like these diaries or these videos or whatever, they're like windows to worlds essentially. And you're only getting a fragment of it through there. And the story is to explore the greater implications of them. But yeah, I think that the Great and Secret Show just had a big influence on me in that respect, and that might be why a lot of it is that way. Plus, that's just how I am with horror movies and with metal in particular, just being so obsessed with that stuff and reading so deep into it, and one thing leading to so many others and so many things that I just never thought about before. So I think that's kind of mirrored in my approach to writing, maybe.
So when you sit down to write something, do you ever, before you start writing it, do you ever sit back and think, I think this might be better if I get somebody else to come on board with me for this one, because I think there's somebody who might add a lot of value to this work for me? Because it seems like collaboration is something that comes really easy for you. You've collaborated with Lucas Mangum, you've Matt Shaw, like you said, Jason Taverner, and then like we include your work with the Call Me Hoop, the fucking scumbags burn in hell series for Godless. Is there something specific that you look for in a person as far as other authors go before you decide to jump in and participate in a collaboration or present the possibility of a collaboration? And are there any authors writing currently who you might like the opportunity to reach out to about doing some work together?
I think the most important thing to look for, I guess, when I'm kind of laying the foundation of a possible collaboration, is their Amazon sales ranking.
No way!
Like, yeah, I think we can work together. You're at least top 20, so no. It's entirely shared interests. It's entirely shared interests with Lucas. We're so much into the same kind of Euro horror and that kind of sensibility. I mean, it just was practically inevitable that that's what we were going to do, something like that. And it was just a conversation about movies, because we weren't thinking, well, we need to collaborate. What's something we could collaborate on? It was like we were talking about zombie novels. And so we'd like to write, each of us would like to write one, but we kind of felt like that market's oversaturated, and only some weirdo who uses a lot of tabs would probably appreciate a book like that.
I love zombies.
I don't know who you could possibly be.
No idea. No idea.
But no, but I mentioned, well, I always wanted to do a book like Demons, the movie Demons. And he was like, well, we could pretty much do like our own sequel to it if we wanted to. That would be fun. And why don't we set it in the world of professional wrestling? So I was just like, okay, let's do it. And I mean, within about 3-4 months, we had Pandemonium. It was a really fast collaboration. None of the others I've done have ever quite gone that fast, I don't think, other than the one with Matt Shaw, because he wrote the majority of that all, himself. I just filled in on a few scenes, but generally like a novel length like that takes, quite a while, for at least for Jason Taverner and I. Those Agent Orange books take 2 to 3 years sometimes, just because of life getting in the way for both of us. But Christopher Triana is a writing machine, so the Night Stalkers didn't take really that long. But again, that was a shared interest thing. Just we were both into extreme horror. We both liked death metal. We liked horror. So he proposed, okay, I have something that we should try called the Night Stalkers, and gave me the idea for it. And I said, yeah, I can work with that. So it's just shared interest. And the same thing with Jason Taverner. I mean, we both discovered we liked writing violent horror, and we liked Dario Argento. We liked David Lynch. So that was like immediately we started writing together, and that was 20 years ago. It's been a long time. So
How did your collaboration with Ed Lee come about?
Well, I've been in contact with Lee. We've been friends since the late 90s. I made a post on the HorrorNet forum in praise of his work, which some people really liked, other people complained about because he was just, at that point, there wasn't much of an extreme horror subgenre. He was, he pretty much was that subgenre all by himself to a large extent. There was Splatterpunk, but he was going even farther than anybody had ever decided they could go with it in there. So I was praising like his character work, which I think he does really good character work. And at that time, he sent me an email thanking me for it. And we just stayed in contact from that point on. And I would send him stuff that I was working on. He was always real encouraging about it. He'd give me some feedback about it. And usually just like one suggestion, like, oh, you should describe what the protagonist looks like or something like that. But he was always encouraging. And over the years, he just, General Grinder came out. He did a great introduction for me for that I think drew a lot more people than I ever realized it would. And so a couple years after that, he emailed me one day and he said, look, I'm doing Header 3 right now and I don't have time to finish it. I want to edit this movie I'm doing, which was the Walking Woman. But so he said, I'd like for you to finish the book for me. And, you know, my mind was blown because I love the Header books. You know, I read Header like the year after it came out back in 1997, 98, whenever that was. And Header 2, I mean, you know, laughed so hard it hurt reading that because I thought it was so hilarious. So, you know, Header is such a huge thing. And to be asked to do it was a high honor that I was intimidated by, but it was like, well, there's no way I can refuse to do it. And he'd essentially planned it as a sequel that would be a movie rather than a book. I guess he probably always wanted to do the book, but foremost he did it as a screenplay for the guys who adapted Header, but they weren't able to get the financing together or whatever. So he just sent me the screenplay he did and said it, you know, I was to adapt the rest of the screenplay. And so that's how I was able to do Header 3. I got to use a lot of his own dialogue. So if anybody thought I was just going over the top with the Southern yokalisms, no, I was taking that back, taking that right off of his script. So I wouldn't have to worry about that. I added a little more gore here and there where I could, but I mean, most of that stuff came right out of the screenplay. But yeah, again, it's all about shared interest and sensibilities too. You know, some collaborations can be a little easier than others, but for the most part, I mean, they're always a good time. And it's, I can be hard to motivate sometimes. So when I know somebody else is relying on me to get something done, it's a lot easier for me to stay on task and push it forward. Whereas if I was just doing it for myself, it's like, well, you know, tomorrow, you know, next year will work just fine or whatever. It's a lot easier for me to put off if I'm not letting somebody down.
I totally understand that. That's the only reason this podcast exists. It's because Christina's like, no, we have to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Until I'm like, I'm not doing this episode. Then someone else's. Oh, are there any authors currently that you want to work with?
You know, Brian Keene and I have been friends for so long. It's something I've talked about with him. He's such a busy guy. I don't know if it would ever happen. We had discussed a concept that I had that would be fun to do. I mean, that's a possibility someday, some year, not anytime soon. Love Chandler Morrison's work a lot. I know he'd never go for it because he's very particular about how he writes. He wants everything to be a certain way, which is cool. You know, I think I'd be a good stylistic fit for him just because I can't come from a lot of the same influences that he does, as far as Bret Easton Ellis or Chuck Palahniuk or J.G. Ballard. We like those three a lot, and all of their work kind of influence what we do to a degree. So I think it would be a good stylistic fit, but at the same time, no, I don't think he would go for it.
Christina, we might need to send a message to Chandler Morris.
Right? Be like, I need you to watch this.
Son.
I just got 2,000 more tabs, so we're good.
Son, our favorite chat, son. We have something we need you to consider.
Chandler's a good friend. We've emailed each other for a couple years, so yeah. I know what he's like. He wouldn't go for it, but it would be fun.
Damn it, Chandler.
Classic Maury. Classic Maury.
Damn it, fancy pants. Christina, you're up, baby.
I am. Okay, so social commentary. For all the assholes, gaping anuses, and Bon and Greg moments.
Oh, yes.
I even have colored tabs for all of them.
What color is gaping anuses, Christina?
And I can prove that I'm not lying. It's pink. I told you.
I would be impressed if there was like a different tab for an anus that was gaping versus just an anus.
It's like you don't know me because purple is buttholes. So, ha on you. I did it because there are differences. Gaping anus is the porn, but you know what? Just read it, guys. Just read it. Anyhow,
like the old Time Life commercials. Read the book. Yeah.
Right? Like we just got to move past this because now, like I've hit a level.
Like, why were these people so obsessed with a series of movies called Gaping Anus? Read the book.
Right? Just so you know. So it's in your works a lot, both solo and as a co-author. It's rich with social commentary. Especially the section I'm about to read. And I want to apologize if I butcher it, but I'm going to read it back to you because Marian hasn't heard this one, I don't think. And this is from Final Indications. And what I saw was the worst than I had imagined. A new era without a substantial revelation was a sobering concept, but I wasn't prepared for its actuality. Everyone was embracing the end of innovation. It didn't matter to them that everything had been done before. It could be overcome, they reasoned, by exhaustive repetition. The sterility of radio reached a new low. Lifeless 3-minute sound bites were the hymns of choice and the secret praise of creative impotency. In theaters, everything was a remake, a sequel, or an adaptation of an old TV show. Books were streamlined to pull us to the end more quickly. Plot and characters were incidental. The mediums we used to put our pointless lives aside were corrupted. No aesthetic and no catharsis. Even language had become infantile. Phrases such as C-word, N-word, R-word, F-bomb. A watchdog society taking on the role of the kid in first grade who couldn't wait to tell the teacher, you said a bad word, like shut up. So, now that that's done, do you know how many times I've rehearsed that? It's been a few. This is big on feelings and commentary for the time. You know how I feel. Everyone knows how I feel about horror readers, that they read at the surface level and then bitch about it. Do you ever feel like in something like this that readers are missing the point?
Yeah, I mean, it's enough that they read it and enjoy it. I mean, that's the thing I have to care about foremost. But if they look beneath the surface a little, I think it would enrich their pleasure of the book, their understanding of perhaps what I was intending when I was writing it. Yeah, there stuff in the book is satirical. I think the portrayal in General Grinder of the male characters in particular was ahead of its time in the sense that every guy in a movie now is a predator or an oppressor or something like that. That was something I was doing. Those stories are written from like 1999 through 2004. They're much older, but they're still, I think, relevant in that way. It's not something I would necessarily try to do now, but at the time it was satirizing kind of a parody too of the idea of the serial killer male. At the time was a big thing, and I was, I guess, pushing that to its extreme. The kind of person, the kind of guy that people were afraid of. I kind of created just, Vaughn and Greg, the nadir of that, or the zenith of it, however you want to look at it. But I do try to, there are certain stories that I do try to imbue with that kind of thing, and just to give them a little more meaning, to just make them more interesting to write sometimes. So there's stories that I think that symbolism in them could be seen fairly easily, but it's probably still missed. Something like Emissary, which was in Genital Grinder. It's about a guy named Gabriel. He works at movie heaven. This name Emissary means like messenger. There's all these things in there that tie into that idea. I don't know if that's something that some readers caught on, but I think it's something that enhances the story if you do know that sort of thing. There's one in Transcendental Mutilation called Temple of Amdusius that that might be the most elaborate version of what I'm talking about. There's so many references in it to voids, to absences. Writing that story, I didn't have a word limit on that one, so I could really go as far with it as I wanted to. So there are several in there, like even the town is called Naughton, as in not, nothing. There's little things like that spread through it. There's a hotel called the Red Circle Inn, Circle, Zero, again, a lot of things like that. So I just think it makes the work better when I can do things like that to it. And I try to put those things into it as I'm writing whenever I can. So yeah, it is probably missed sometimes. Like Genital Grinder is just seen a lot of times as just I guess woman hating, misogynistic. That's the takeaway from it a lot of times. And I mean, you can see that in there, of course,
if you're going to stay on the surface.
Right. I mean, that is the surface level read of it. But I think what's kind of missed is the depiction of men isn't flattering.
No.
They're homicidal, they're lascivious, they're dishonest. There's all these things that they are that's not meant to be positive. But I think the tendency is when to identify a protagonist as the hero rather than just the main character. There is a difference in that, sort of like Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. He's not a hero. He's a psycho. He's killing, or at least thinking he's killing people. And so I think, yeah, if you just take that away from it, there's some things in the book you could miss. And I mean, some people just go into it with that kind of mindset. And if sometimes when you go in there to see something like that, then that's all you'll take away from it rather than what might also be there too.
Marian, I'm going to follow it up with my last question.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about Genital Grinder. For me, it's a favorite. And yes, I've eventually said this about every one of his, but we'll just move past that. Genital Grinder feels like you're fearless. You're not afraid of like the woke culture, because it really wasn't a thing then. Just a guy telling depraved, funny stories and trying to entertain the masses. Can you talk about the differences in social climates between Genital Grinder and Transcendental Mutilation, and if it affected Transcendental Mutilation in any way?
Yeah, it was different. I mean, I was, in college or just out of college, writing a lot of the Genital Grinder stories, and a couple of them were written, 3 of them were written for gross out contests. So the object was to be as depraved and vile, repulsive, and just uninhibited as I could be, which back then was a lot. I was blowing past limits I didn't realize I had at the time. But so yeah, at that time it was a different thing. This technology was different. The social mores were even fairly different at the time. And then when I revised the stories that became Genital Grinder, I guess that was toward the end of 2011. Things had changed somewhat by then too, not as severely as they have in the subsequent 10 years, but it didn't necessarily affect how I edited them at the time. It's like that's what they were meant to be. So I think I even added stuff to like the story called Genital Grinder, a snuff film in 5 acts, became gorier. I threw a few sicker things in there that I thought of in the meantime, just because I had kind of a time limit back then and I could do a little bit more with it. So, yeah, but as we go through the years and I saw some of the reception to Genital Grinder and how people interpreted it, yeah, I would still go well past the limits of decency with what I wrote, but maybe I was thinking a bit more about not going to certain places that I once did. And I mean, there's still, the first story is called The Corpse Fucker Blues. I mean, this isn't anything that's gone to PG-13 or anything. It's
not at all.
It's still a very niche thing. It's still going to offend a lot of people and hopefully still sicken the core audience that it's made for. But yeah, you know, the perceptions have changed, and societal norms have changed, and you do have to be aware of that as you write these stories, not necessarily because it means you're not going to write that thing, but how you approach them could be different. And like diversification's a bigger thing, diversity. So Reincarnage and Reincursion have like a lot of different ethnicities in them. I mean, it just ultimately leads to a wider variety of people being killed. Ultimately, I mean, it's not like we're going about it a whole lot differently than we would have with the different characters, but we try to be inclusive just so everyone can see themselves mutilated in a story, you know.
You all get your turn.
Right.
Representation for all.
Everybody can feel
Representation matters.
Everyone can feel seen, and everyone can feel stalked and hunted, and
that's beautiful.
Yeah, everyone can enjoy their mutilation. So, but yeah, it has impacted, I guess, the Vaughn and Greg book that I've talked about doing for years. It's something that back when I did those stories wasn't a thing, but the kind of people they are is less fun overall, I think, to society at large now than it was back when I wrote it, as a couple of depraved, uneducated rapists and killers. That was something that could be seen as funnier back then in a darkly comic way that now is not necessarily as acceptable. So figuring out how to still do that and keep them true to who they are while still being a story that people want to read has been a challenge that I still plan to do, but it is harder. Not making it easier on myself by sending them to college, which is the concept of the book, but but I still plan to do it. It's just a case of, yeah, you have to think about the way you do things in a way that 20 years ago wasn't anywhere near my mind. Nowadays, people sometimes put trigger warnings on their books, and some people want an itemized list of all the atrocities that they're going to be encountering in the book. And I haven't ever done that. I don't have a problem with anybody who does. I just haven't never thought to do that myself. I kind of hope that the title, like The Corpse Fucker Blues, is going to signal somebody that, okay, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah. You would hope that the insight would be there.
Right.
You would hope.
Right.
Look at the readers we're talking about that.
And in this instance in the book, I think pretty much all the rape in this book is purely between the living and the dead. It's not.
It is.
Yeah, there's not any that happens between a live person. This time it's all corpses, but still as unpalatable as I can make it.
Yeah. Well, transcendental mutilation is kind of a conglomeration of most of the short fiction you've done since Genital Grinder. And in there, you include, the classic necrophilia, but then we've got tree fucking and nanotechnology implants in genitals and vaginas and forced martyrdom, which is one of my personal favorite tropes. At the end of this collection, you have a story that's basically a story behind the story and explains how some of these things are difficult for you, especially in particular when it comes to writing short fiction, correct? But both of your solo works are short fiction. So, what is the hardest to write? Short fiction or long fiction?
The short fiction, I think, is harder. It's a little difficult for me to say as somebody who has a collaborator doing a lot of the heavy lifting with the long fiction sometimes. So with short fiction, it's just up to me to do it myself. But like the profile was longer. It's a novella. It was about, I don't know, I don't remember how long it wound up being, 15,000, 17,000 words, whatever. I did that in like a couple weeks. It was not a difficult one to write. I mean, again, there was a collaborative aspect to it. There was an ending that had to be a certain way for Drew's instructions for the rest of the series, but I didn't struggle with that one that much. So in that case, the longer fiction was it was good to not have the restraint of a word limit necessarily. So that one went fairly easily. Short fiction sometimes can be difficult for me for sure.
Yeah. Do you feel like it's about trying to get everything you want to say into that brief piece of work?
I think it's less about not knowing like the beginning, middle, and end. I know a beginning or I know a middle. I don't always, if I don't know the end, it's probably not going to happen with me. I have to figure out what the ending is, or the story is just generally not going to reveal itself to me. I kind of have to push to get there. So once I do, then yeah, it can happen. But other times it's like, a lot of people do hundreds of short stories in their lives. And I'm just like, I don't see how you do
it. Everybody's brains are so different though. We all have different ways that we function on that level. For those of you who are not watching on YouTube, Ryan Harding's cat has entered the interview and I am in love and completely distracted. What is your cat's name?
That is Captain Trips.
Captain Trips! Mm-hmm. Captain Trips, I love you. I wish I could pet you. He's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
He's gorgeous. Hi, buddy. Well, I'm going to look at Ryan Harding's cat for a little bit, and you all are going to catch a Godless ad real fast, and then we're going to come back for the rapid fire 4. Okay, here we go. We'll be right back. Bye.
Hey kids, looking for a way to affordably access the best and wildest independent extreme horror currently in existence? Godless Horrors is the place to be. Go to www.godless.com to gain access to thousands of extreme horror and splatterpunk books from the genre's best and brightest independent authors. Godless Horrors offers every title in their catalog in a variety of formats to ensure compatibility with your favorite digital reading device. Strapped for cash? No worries. Godless has a fantastic collection of free titles ready for instant download, with other titles in their collection rarely exceeding $3 to $4. Again, go to www.godless.com or download the app and tell them what the fuck you're looking for. Come join the Godless tribe today. Forever delightfully deviant. Forever godless.
With the questions with which was the hardest, which was the easiest, It was talking about in the collections.
Oh, all right.
I didn't make that obvious.
I didn't get that.
The idiot who wrote the questions. What a dumbass. God, what did you do? Spend 30 minutes on this? God.
Did you get your kids to do it?
God. Saris. She thinks coffee comes out of nipples, by the way, now. So that's fun to explain.
I wish it did.
Oh my God, that would be amazing.
Oh my God, yeah, absolutely. Well,
so
it's time. This was really a great segue into that, talking about coffee coming out of nipples.
Now we got to do the question.
Well, you go ahead. You go ahead. Go ahead. My brain.
It's okay.
I don't feel good. As you can see from this guy who just came to hang out,
he
and immediately
is
zonked.
done.
Yeah,
done.
This is not like my kid. This is not like my kid. We don't feel good.
Which story was the easiest to write? Short story. And which one was the hardest to write?
In transcendental mutilation?
Overall, either one. I'll let dealer's choice.
The easiest story was either the Secretor or Down There. The Secretor, I had the idea. I was watching a movie, and my mind just got to wandering one time. But this similar concept, it was like a movie where characters were isolated on like an island, and I just got to thinking about that and what I could do with the similar concept. And that one I just sat down and did it when Jack Bantry asked me to do something for Splatterpunk zine, and that one came. I had a false start on it, but the second attempt was, got it right, and after that, I didn't have any further problems with it. I don't remember how many days it took to write. Not very many though. So compared to some stories which were much more of a struggle, that one was fairly easy. Down There was like a surprise. I didn't have that one in mind at all, really. It was just a case of I owed a story to Matt Shaw's Masters of Horror, and I didn't quite know what I was going to do. And I thought, well, it would be interesting to actually do a story that's a horror story. I don't normally do that. Mine are more of just like extreme horror, that things that could happen. It would be horrible, but what if I actually tried to do a horror story? And at the time in the news, the Slender Man stabbing case was in the news. And I just got to thinking about, well, the woods are inherently eerie anyway. What if I did a story about something similar to that, like some kind of mythic figure in the woods? And I just kind of started writing from there. The story begins talking about how the main character is kind of freaked out by the woods. She has a little brother, and I just kind of went from there. They moved to a new place, and every day I would just do like 1,000 words, and it would just kind of, I don't know, that one's one of the rare ones that kind of wrote itself for me. So even the ending I didn't know necessarily, but I just felt good enough about the story to keep going with it. And then that rare occasion, it kind of did just do itself for me. And so that one was easy. I don't think it's the kind of story Matt necessarily was looking for. He probably wanted something with more, genitals grinded, but I went the more traditional way with it. So I don't know. I was happy with how it turned out.
Okay, so you want to do the rapid fire 4 now? I can talk.
Absolutely.
I can't even talk.
Wait, were you gonna ask me about the difficult story?
Oh yeah, I just keep like jumping ahead.
She's so excited.
I am.
Well, like I said, Divine Red, I had to cut so much out of it, but just getting to that point where I even had a complete story, that one was difficult. I did so many different versions of a beginning to that story, and I would go 1,000, 2,000 words in and realize I was still setting things up. It hadn't gotten to the club where they go to called Pain Freak, and it wasn't going to work out and I'd have to just trash it and start all over. I don't know exactly how many false starts I had on it, but I mean, it could have been close to 10 before I finally arrived at something that worked and I was able to get to the end of it. And then even after all that, I still had to cut, 1,500 words out of it. That one was difficult, but Temple of Amdusias was probably the hardest. It took me months to write that story. There was a deadline for it, and then I just had to tell Jared, well, sorry, it's not happening. And he had delays on the anthology anyway, so it didn't quite matter. But I mean, I never felt like I wasn't working on it other than when I had to take time off to write a story for the Thanksgiving anthology, The Distended Table, that Russell Holbrook co-edited, which he and I were we were roommates at KillerCon a few years ago, and so I said, yeah, I'll do a story for it. And so I had to take a break to do that and then come back to what became Temple of Amdusias. But like, just the concept for the story kept changing as I kept trying to feel my way into it. The anthology was to be an homage to the music of Merciful Fate or King Diamond, and Jared wanted something that was more atmospheric, which after Down There I didn't think would be a problem. The atmosphere really wasn't difficult. I could get into that pretty easily, but coming up with a story that I felt worked and was a good fit for Merciful Fate was difficult. I kept going through his lyrics, trying to come up with something, an idea that would suggest itself from, in particular, the first Merciful Fate albums, which are my favorite, like Melissa and Don't Break the Oath. I was trying to get something from those, and as it turned out, I wound up coming to the EP that predated those, called Merciful Fate, and a song called Devil Eyes. And once I arrived at that and saw the possibilities, I'd already through one of the false starts come up with the idea of voids being so present in the story. And I changed the main character to somebody else and just started coming up with this idea of this occult ritual that's going on involving these killings in this abandoned section of town. And so eventually it worked out. I mean, I was really happy with the story in the end, but it took me a few months to come up with what I needed to on that story. And I mean, I was working on it a lot in that time. It wasn't just like, well, I'll think about it some more and one day maybe I'll do some writing. I was writing on stuff and just throwing it out week after week. So it's a tough story, but I think it's maybe the best in the collection. So it was worth it. But after that, I kind of felt like, I don't know if short stories are going to be a thing I can do much more. And so anytime I get offered one, I'm hesitant. I've managed to do a couple, but it's been a struggle.
Awesome. So now that
my struggles are awesome.
Your pain pleases her.
It does. It does. It makes me so happy. So now we'll do a rapid fire 4.
Hell yeah! This is my favorite part. I mean, I really like.
This is all Marian.
I really love hearing.
Oh, Marian, I can't hear you. Uh-oh. You're back, maybe? No?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so I'm gonna let Christina go ahead and kick it off with these bad boys.
Okay, so if someone were to write a memoir about you, what would it be called?
Gosh, an acquired taste that no one acquires.
I'm gonna have to kindly agree to disagree on that.
That's great. I don't know if you're this is quickly becoming one of my favorite questions of the rapid fire for this season. Last week I talked to Paula Ash and she was like, well, I guess it would be called Why? The Paula D. Ash story. An acquired taste that nobody had acquired. I love it.
Yeah, That's a James Elroy illusion, but it's one that that's always stayed with me. It's like, yeah, I can relate to that.
Oh, that's fantastic. So here we go. Here's a really good one for you, especially with the kind of stuff you like to write and enjoy writing. If I sat you down and I put an explosive collar on your neck, all battle royale style, and told you had 30 minutes to write a book for me and Christina's kids, or the collar would explode and your head would blow up, what would that kid's book be called and what would it be about?
I think it would be called The Never Ending Story, and it'd be about a kid who's bullied, and there's like a luck dragon, and it would just be the movie.
They'd never know the difference.
And totally not plagiarized at all.
I mean, it's not being published, and I can save my own life. Yeah, let's just,
no copyright. We're good.
yeah.
Everybody loves The Never Ending Story, and I do not.
Uh-oh.
So, all right, Christina, do it.
All right. Which of your characters is your least favorite and why?
Least favorite. I don't know. I mean, I like to write about such horrible people, but I love doing that. So it's sometimes it's the ones who are supposed to be kind of likable that I'm just like.
That's what Chandler said.
I was gonna say. I was like, that is exactly what Chandler Morrison said. It's the likable people that I hate writing about.
Yeah, that does present its own challenges.
So
maybe, gosh, maybe Erica and Reincursion is kind of one that, because Jason was more invested in her than I was, I think. I had different ideas in mind for her that he took a different way with her than I would have gone. So there's probably there would have been a different fate, I guess, if I had chosen versus what he did. But I mean, I played my part in making her what she was too. So
that's fascinating.
Even so, I mean, even so to say that I like the least, it's not like, oh, I hate this person. It's just I would have probably had a different plan for her than what we went with. But I mean, that's the art of compromise and collaboration. Sometimes it works that way.
I was gonna say, have you? This isn't a concept I've ever considered before, but like, how do you handle a situation like that where you're collaborating with somebody and all of a sudden this character appears from this other human being who's involved in this project, and you're like, I fucking hate this guy. This character's the worst. I don't want to write for this character. This is awful. Like, how do you handle that sort of thing? You don't have to use names or anything, but like, if that's a thing, what do you do?
Well, I mean, it wasn't a case of just being like, oh gosh, I hate her. What are you doing? It wasn't like that. But yeah, sometimes there are just the way the book moves along and goes in a direction you hadn't necessarily considered. I mean, sometimes like with Jason, we know each other well enough. Like if one of us isn't feeling something, then the other will probably say, I don't know if this is going to work. And here's why I think that. And you just kind of have to come to a consensus about how much of something you'll allow versus what they want to do, and if you can find a happy medium there. And I mean, we usually get there on that. It's not that big a deal. When I don't know somebody as well, sometimes it's kind of like, well, I guess I kind of have to just be like, yeah, I mean, okay, whatever.
Just gonna go with it then.
You have to go along to get along sometimes, but just like, if it's something massive, then yeah, you're going to say, yeah, that's probably not something we should do. Here's why I think that. But otherwise, if it's like, okay, well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have done it that way, but okay, we can do that. That's fine. It's just the nature of collaboration, though. I mean, sometimes that's a great attribute of it, that it can go in a direction you never would have thought of yourself. And other times you're like, well, if I had total control of this, I might not do that. And there's something I might have liked to do more, but it's fine. Generally a collaborator is going to be understanding about certain things, and if there's going to, you're just not, I'm not going to write with such a rigid personality that they're just not going to entertain any sort of discourse about that. So, but I can't think of many situations where I've had to have that interaction with them. I'm like, yeah, man, this doesn't work at all.
I don't care for this. So here's a really important question. Really serious, important question. If you suddenly were confronted by an angry Michael Myers in the wilderness, which trauma response would you default to? Fight, flight, or freeze?
Flight, yeah.
Flight.
Yeah, it'd be the flight. Why would he be in a jungle exactly?
He does what he wants. I mean, if Jason can go to space, Michael Myers can go to the jungle. Ryan Harding.
There you go.
Yeah, I suppose you're right, but yeah, I would say yeah, I would run because he's the slow walker pursuer type. I think I could. I mean, I don't do a lot of running, but hopefully I could manage enough to get away. But I mean, that was something that we when we designed Agent Orange in the Reincarnage and Reincursion books, it's like, let's have somebody who does run. that's
an actual fast killer.
Yeah.
What a concept!
I'm not a big fast. I'm not a big fast zombie person, but when it comes to killers, like Friday the 13th too, Jason ran.
Oh yeah, so, that's true.
That's something you can do. That's something that should be done more, because it's pretty, it makes it more tense when somebody can run after you and you don't know how fast they can go. So you better hope that you can go faster.
That's very similar to the concept that RJ Bonetti, presented. He was like, well, I'm going to jog to my car and then I'm going to drive away. This isn't even a good question. Well, Ryan Harding, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. We appreciate it more than you'll know. Do you have anything coming up in the near future that you would like to let the people know about so that they can keep it on their radar?
Well, thank you for having me. I've wanted to be on the show since I saw Chandler's interview, and it's been really cool to be on with some really great questions, which I appreciate a lot. Coming soon, we have Header 3 is being reprinted from Evil Cookie Publishing. I believe the date that K. Trap Jones said is September 28th. So that will be available again soon. And my next collection, Transcendental Mutilation, the release date's a little more nebulous. It's in the works. I'm hoping it's going to be out really, really soon. I would love for it to be out in October. I don't know for sure that will happen, but hopefully we're looking at a fall release on that. So hopefully it's going to be very soon, but I'm excited for everybody to get to read that. It's been a long time since General Grinder, so it's good to have something out just under my own name, aside from like the profile came out last year, but that was again part of the series. So this is the first solo work I've had since Genital Grinder, so it's good to have something else out, and I hope everybody who's been waiting for something just that wasn't a collaboration will be happy with all the depravity that's in this one, and hopefully it's some stuff they've never even thought of before.
So if you feel comfortable with people reaching out to you, I mean, Christina has no boundaries, so she was going to find you no matter what. But if you feel comfortable with people reaching out to you, where is the best place for them to contact you, and how do they find you?
Okay. Well, I do have a Twitter account. I'm not so great about signing into that.
Yes, I have one too, and neither am I.
but the address on that one's the easiest to find is at NecroAF, as in Necro as fuck. My I think my Facebook address is facebook.com/RyanHardMorbid, all one word. So I can be found on there, and I'm more active on Facebook than Twitter. I will eventually get to Twitter if somebody contacts me there, follows me or whatever. But Facebook is the one where I probably use the most of the social media hells that we've embraced.
Isn't it wonderful?
And before we end, we did not acknowledge something very important. We did not acknowledge Mr. Harding's 4th Splatterpunk award winning last month.
Yeah.
So congrats, because I haven't said it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, Chris and I were very happy to win Best Splatterpunk, or Splatterpunk for Best Novel. That's one I hadn't done yet, so that's really cool. And we appreciate everybody who read The Night Stalkers and rated and reviewed it and nominated it for the award. Plus, there was really great competition too. Daniel Volpe's Left to Use, really great book that everybody should check out, and plus some of the other great nominees that were there. So it was really esteemed that everybody wanted the Night Stalkers to win. We appreciate that a lot.
Yeah. Well, for more information on Mr. Ryan Harding, please come join us in the Mothers of Mayhem official Facebook group. I believe he himself might be a member of that group. And also in there, you can find links to our mom's merch store. Yes, we have fan gear. Not that we have fans, but we have gear for people who are potentially fans. We also have our ultimate fan community reading soundtrack playlists for both YouTube and Spotify. The Spotify ones are constantly updating because I spend a lot of time on Spotify. Our community group provides exclusive information, content, giveaway opportunities, plus so much more. As always, you can send your questions, comments, pictures of dildos for Christina, memes of my mortal enemy, Zach, anthropomorphic sharp baggins, to our email address, which is momextremepodcast@gmail.com. That's m.o.m.extremepodcast@gmail.com. But honestly, you can just throw all that stuff up on the community group wall, and we're going to see it way quicker than we will at the email. If you are listening rather than watching on the YouTubes, visit our Anchor.fm homepage. You can search us right up on there, Mothers of Mayhem. Leave us a voice message. If you do this, you might be surprised to hear your own voice bleeding back at you through your favorite podcast streaming platform in an upcoming episode. This content is an exclusive bonus only found on our uploads to podcast streaming platforms, and was a lot of fun last season. Don't forget that this season you are getting blooper reels from every episode we post on YouTube. So there's your little YouTube bonus. And finally, thank you once more to singer-songwriter Amigo the Devil. I'm wearing one of my Amigo shirts today, for allowing us to use his song Hungover in Jonestown as our theme. Ryan Harding, we just love you. You are marvelous. And I hope you will come back.
Wouldn't miss it.
Yeah! Until next time, go raise some hell children.
Make your weird book mommies proud.
Oh, yeah! All right. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Life is a joke, and death is the punchline. Oh, la, 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 la.